You should be able to shift from a light, cheery atmosphere and attitude and conversation, and in a flash of a second, be deadly serious and attentive and receptive without losing a thing. And then, if it is the correct thing to do, if it's the proper time for it, to go immediately back to being light again. Which means you're able to cut off instantly the mechanical mood which you are, the mechanical mood that you're in, and be in another mood while being in both of them quite consciously, so that you can shift amazingly, no matter where you are, down at the grocery market or at home alone or in this room. You can shift from one center to another and all the time be in command of yourself. Instead of dragging the last few seconds around with you for a half hour or an hour or 5 minutes until some exterior force forces you out of it. But that's not what we're going to talk about tonight. I want to ask a question before we go into the main theme tonight. Is there anyone here who does not understand, and I repeat, who does not understand that these ideas and techniques that we have here cannot possibly be of interest to the masses of people, that can only be of interest to a relatively few people? Is there anyone here who does not understand that? Is there anyone here who doesn't understand why it has to be this way, why it is this way? Is it all quite clear to you, is it? No, Jim?
I'm not sure.
Very, very simple. Who wants it? Don't go any deeper than that. You don't have to explain it any deeper than that. Who wants this? I would estimate, probably quite accurately, that tonight and tomorrow night, maybe Sunday night, scattered throughout this city and many other cities and states throughout the country, there are tens of thousands of political meetings where everyone is gathered in small groups or large groups to promote their candidates and their ideas and their legislation. They don't want this. And years of your life did you live without wanting it? See, it's very simple when you look at it that way. But through some miracle for which we can all be very grateful, we've found a source, a power by which we can change ourselves, not improve ourselves, not become better people, because we tried that and it didn't work, but make a total change in the kind of a human being, man or woman, that we are. And we're going to find out how to do that tonight. One way. I'm going to give you a word, and while a word is nothing in itself, if you could see the power, the significance, the talent behind this word for doing what we just talked about, for making this deep inner transformation so that you don't get mad every 5 minutes or jealous every 7 minutes or afraid every 10 minutes. Is everyone warm enough in here? Okay? I see a couple of coats going on. Okay. Because if you're not physically comfortable, you're distracted without knowing. The great power is found in the word risk. I will tell you, and you're going to find out for yourself, because we're going to emphasize this later on Sunday. If you could see the power behind simply risking everything that you've called yourself, your habits, your different ideas about yourself, if you could see the possibility you have for risking everything for the inner kingdom, you would go out of here determined to work on your own, to find as many ways as possible, and we'll find out some of them tonight, ways to risk something so that you become more frightened than you are now, but not really so, but more consciously frightened. We're not talking about doing some stupid thing like deliberately getting someone angry or running your car through the red signal. We're talking about finding ways in which you and I can enter every day into as many risks as possible, okay, instead of being the little cowards that we've been all our lives, playing it safe, staying behind the guard, the mask, risking nothing so as to get this pseudo feeling of security, which is no security at all because we still shake, right? Have you been scared and nervous today? We're going to talk tonight and on Sunday of ways to break the whole thing. So that instead of having the timidity, which you don't even know you have now, by the way, instead of having the timidity of drawing back when a challenge comes up, any challenge at all, when the waitress comes up to you in the cafe and you really haven't made up your mind what you want, you say, "Give me a minute, please." And she still stands there, waiting for you to make up your mind so she can get your order out of the way and go to the next one. You're going to risk her displeasure, her annoyance. Because for the first time you see what a little slave you are to that waitress, as an example. Where can you and I find ways to risk what? Let's get very specific. I don't know whether you're going to work on these things, but I am. I'm going to take these out. I'm listening to myself talk tonight. I'm serious. I'm not joking. I'm listening to myself, and I'm going to take these things out tomorrow. Not tomorrow, when I walk out that door, and you do the same. Where can I begin a psychological risk, risking rejection by you? See, that's good. Stop right there. If I'm shy about talking to you, for example, and so I say, I'm going to deliberately start talking to you, and if I see you get bored with me, I have risked your boredom, and I've got something I didn't have before, because unconsciously I might have felt that maybe I'm not too brilliant a talker, and so I play it safe, but I'm going to start talking to you deliberately and consciously and watch you get bored. I can tell how your eyes are up there. You're looking at me, but you're not paying attention. And you're wondering how you can get away from me. Ha! But all my life, I have sat in my little corner and not risked a thing. And so I remained afraid of 1,000 things, not just you, of 1,000 things. So I'm going to deliberately walk over to you, and even if I bore you, I'm sorry, but I have work to do. Risk rejection in how many ways? You find out, you take a paper and pencil, not now necessarily, and you find out ways where you're afraid to talk to that person, to behave, to a person, write a letter to someone maybe, telephone someone, not anything stupid, you understand, normal, natural. So that for the first time in your stilted, neurotic little life, confined little life, you do something in fear consciously. Isn't that great? When I used to go to the telephone, when you used to go to the telephone, you have to make a call about something, anything, not necessarily a big thing even. You'd, first of all, what would you do? You'd procrastinate. Or you'd say, well, Bill, you do it. Or Helen, you do it. Instead, you get up out of that chair because you're so physically lazy to begin with. You break the physical laziness. You're so comfortable. It's so nice there. I got the nice cool drink there. I'll make that call tomorrow. You go against physical laziness, first of all, and you get up, and for the first time, you're aware of yourself walking deliberately and consciously into the lion's den. This to you is the lion's den. Making that phone call to someone, and you're not quite sure how they're going to react. They might get mad at you, for example. Or they might say, who's this? And they should have recognized your voice. How about, risk rejection. Get that down. Find ways where you can get rejected by as many people as possible, so that the time comes when the word has no meaning to you anymore at all. And how about love affairs? Past, present, future. You know that woman that you were madly in love with, huh? That man. You got your heart broken. See, you didn't use that. Now you know better. How about risking, one of Juan's favorite words, and a superb word? How about risking humiliation of some kind? And you don't even see how you do it because you're mechanical and you blab. How about sometime risking the humiliation of keeping your mouth shut instead of blabbing in order to impress someone that you know the answer when you really don't? Worse than that, when you do know the answer, you went to high school and you know that the capital of California is Sacramento, and you want to be the first to tell someone who doesn't know. From now on, you will keep your mouth shut and let someone else get the credit, while you suffer the great humiliation of not getting the ego advantage of telling someone the capital of California. By this time, you should be able to see that you have to find your own examples out there of where you can deliberately risk what? You find out. How about risking someone who likes you now, who doesn't really like you, by the way, I must tell you, but is using you? You don't know how bad it is. You think you're all nice people, you're not. I know how you really are. Aren't you glad? How about risk? How about risking being in a position where you stand up for truth in a certain way, which risks the displeasure of this person whom you are wrongly depending on to get a nice feeling inside yourself? How about risking losing that feeling from them? Oh, we've just begun. I'll tell you a risk so enormous you would faint in shock if you saw it all at once. You think of how old you are right now, and then you think of the shock you would have if you dared to have the courage to run the risk of seeing that you have been totally wrong all your life. Not about planting the apricot tree. You were right about that. You read a book and watered it. Not right about repairing your automobile. That's on a different level of what we're talking about. How about being totally wrong about what a nice person you are? Or the lie that you could have been a nice person had other people not treated you so badly? How about seeing how cruel and hypocritical you have been all your life up to this point? Wouldn't that be a tremendous risk? A wonderful risk? What is a risk? A risk is one step where you're so fed up, so tired of the lie that you have been living, which you have been, so tired of it that you say, I will use this idea, and it's an idea, of risking something deliberately that I haven't risked up until now because it has kept me in my dreamland of security. Not security. Boy, in my private world, I'm a great businessman, a great lover, a great kindly person, whatever it is. I'm going to risk stepping outside of this prison, which it is, by the very practical technique of risking something that keeps this in place, which means there's going to be a jolt. Which means something is going to happen that I don't want to happen, but I'm going to let it happen. Not once and not twice and not 50 times, but maybe starting tomorrow, if I even remember anything that was said in the class, maybe starting tomorrow, if I have 1 ounce of brains, I can risk one thing tomorrow. I'm going to tell you, if tomorrow you put together and remember everything you've heard tonight, and you do one thing, one clear thing to risk your self-images you have, which are nonsense, that you were owed something, for example, that if I get this, another woman, I'll beat him. And you write that down on a piece of paper. Today, Saturday, I risked one thing. You write it down. Make it very clear to yourself. One thing tomorrow is worth 1,000 idle daydreams about it. One clear-cut place where you put yourself into a position where you knew you are going to be scared. If you don't know you're going to be scared, and if you're not scared, you haven't risked the thing. You're just deceiving yourself. I will repeat, don't do anything dumb or stupid that offends someone or anything like that. I'm talking about your inner work in here. You do one tomorrow you have done what is right for yourself. And that will help you to remember that the next day you have to do 2. And the next day 3. And the next day 4. So that when you get up in the morning, among other things, you're risking it all day long in order to destroy the lie and the misery. You take a little thing and you catch yourself, you're about to brag. Remember? You're about to brag. You're about to create the bombshell statement. Tomorrow I'm moving to Nova Scotia. You expect everyone to faint in amazement. The alternative to the bombshell statement is the dramatic utterance. They're synonyms. You know people, or have you done it yourself, where you make the dramatic announcement hoping that everybody's jaws will drop? The attention is on you for the minute. Could you catch that and risk not getting everyone's attention on you? Okay. Now, if you will remember this, and if you will do it, and if you will not carelessly throw away the money, the psychic money you have received tonight, that's what I'm afraid of. That we get your ladies are getting your purses loaded with money, and you in your pockets, and you throw it out there. You take it home and work with it. Now I will tell you what will finally result. Which you won't understand, but you can begin from this night on to understand what will happen to you. First of all, you will begin to see clearly and shockingly the source from which you are taking your commands in life. Where you used to think that you were an independent thinker, you were your own man and your own woman, you begin to see that you were indeed the puppet pulled on the string by that waitress, by some relative, by your own mind going into the past and remembering those things you did in the past, terrible things or boastful things. You will begin to see that you are taking your commands internally and externally from mad, insane sources, mechanical sources, unconscious sources. The facial expression on someone else gives you a command, you react. When you see this quite clearly, that you're a slave to yourself, not really to the other person. When you see this quite clearly and get tired enough of the invisible chains you've been carrying around, chains which we've called bracelets, right? We call the chain a bracelet. That makes it, quote, bearable, but it's not bearable. It still digs into the skin, and it's still awkward and throws us off balance, and it makes us feel heavy. When I see quite clearly that I've been taking my commands from these negative sources and risk the whole business, because it will be the death of me, the death of the idea that I am independent, which was a lie. I risk the death of that as the first step. Go through the death of the idea that I'm independent. A new feeling about myself will come into my mind, into my emotions, into my physical body, into my whole psychic system. And I will begin to see with great astonishment that I can take my commands from somewhere else other than this neurotic, this nut that has been controlling me all my life. No description is possible of this other source, and don't you dare imagine that you're doing it or taking your commands from there now, because you're not. That would be just another mistake that would keep you from finding it. That would be your imagination that you're spiritual, or that you've been reading all these books, so certainly you know what the man is talking about. You don't. But you will begin eventually to feel this other thing. And what is this other thing? God, truth, cosmic force, something that's not of this life, something that's not of this world. And when you get up, that is where you'll take your commands, right in the middle of that madhouse of that office or that cafe where you work. You will be a free human being right in the middle of it. Then, as a further step, then we'll have a break. As a further step, beyond this, while you still have the idea that there is this false source of life where you're taking your commands from neurotic people, from false ideas, from social propaganda, while you still have this as an idea, and you still have as an idea that there is another source, which there is, I'm telling you, you now have two ideas, opposing ideas, that there is this negative source, which is madness, which I've lived from all my life. You also have the idea that there's this other source. When you, through understanding everything I've talked about, have vanished, have disappeared as a separate identity, as a separate ego, when you have achieved this, then there is no idea at all that you get your source of power from God. That would be separation still. That would be egotism. That would be fanaticism. That would be neurosis. While you have the idea on the proper level in your mind, you will not be living the idea, but living the whole thing, without any need to think about it. Because remember, we said God, truth, wholeness with a capital W is not an idea, but a state in which you and I are not divided. Now look, just up to this point of 30 minutes, how much you have to work on from the minute I say we'll take our break. If you can even remember, from the minute I say we're going to take our break, if you can remember once, just one idea, between the time the break ends and it starts again, one clear-cut idea, get it in your mind so as to break the identification and the association of the chatter out there. If you do it once, I congratulate you. So do it. And that'll give you the first feeling that you can be in the madness and not be part of it. The madness of the whole world. And so we will now take our break. All right, what would you like to talk about? you go 10 times as fast as you're going now. You're not going to get anywhere this way. You're not risking enough. You're not risking anything. I see you come in here, and a month later, a week later, I see the same person coming in here. Look. You are either going, this is for your sake, not mine. I have to take care of myself. You're either going to do this or you're not. Risk. You won't risk a thing because you're afraid. That's the way to stay afraid. When you're identified with your way of life being everything about you internally, we're not talking about physical body, the way you think, the way you act, things you want, things you hope to get, your secret sorrows, your secret guilts, your secret hatreds of people. When you are identified with these, that means you are it. You are the bundle. Now, if you are the bundle, how are you going to start changing it? By seeing it and not identifying with it. How many times have you been told of the necessity, like 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, you were told of the necessity of standing apart from the talk in there and seeing something in yourself. And I had to speak a little bit sharply to 2 of you out there because you were dead asleep and didn't know it. For heaven's sake, wake up and live your own life. I must begin to see what it means to separate from what I have called me in order to see my rude behavior, my dependent behavior, my nervous behavior. Stand aside and see it and then not call it me. Because all my life I've called it me and it's kept it cemented, hard. It has made me scared and hostile and sick. One of the most marvelous experiences you will ever have is when you've understood this idea of standing apart from yourself, seeing something happening to you and not identifying with it. That is, not saying, this is me. Because you understand, do you not? We ought to have some psychiatrists here. It would help them. Understand that this nutty individual, this sleeping individual, This pained individual is not you at all. Not really. But because you do not understand what it means to rise above idea, which we talked about a few minutes ago, above thought, above name calling, above self-descriptions, because you don't understand this, you do it completely automatically, not knowing what you're doing to yourselves against yourselves, and so you remain an unchanged, chained human being. Now back to the marvelous experience, which you're far from having, because you haven't mastered the preliminaries yet of simply understanding everything we're talking about. The time will come when you'll be in a tense exterior condition, maybe at work, maybe in a family crisis, a home crisis, where the mad world is revolving around you, which it's always is doing, by the way. And you understand a mad world appears sane. Do you understand that? It doesn't always look mad. It looks quite sane, looks quite intelligent, can look very peaceful and angelic, but it's mad, but you don't know it yet. You can be right in the middle of a violent situation, watching your own emotions, say a family quarrel, right? Watching your own emotions, your own responses, your own thoughts, see it, separate from it, and shatter once and for all your connection with surrounding insanity. So that when your idiotic uncles and brothers and sisters and aunts and the rest of them are screaming at each other or subtly accusing each other with glances, you can feel the atmosphere in that room, can't you? You know it's mad. You can be completely apart from it and not be part of the madness, because you've broken the connection with your own madness. You listen to this. You listen to this. By running the risk of no longer calling yourself mad, dynamic, intelligent, or anything else. So that when there is no one there, there is sanity. You just think, this should be very easy. You just think the last time you quarreled with someone, you think of your own madness in it, and think of the pleasure it gave you, and risk not getting mad next time, so as to destroy your insanity, so you don't spread it out into the world anymore. So that you don't love your own agitation anymore. So that you don't love being a big phony anymore. Because if you're a big phony, you like being a big phony. And the reason you like it is because you don't know any other way. And the reason you don't know any other way is because you will not risk dropping being a phony. Because you're afraid of the death of this person you have called many things, including a phony. To die is to live. say to the world, dear sir, dear madam, I'm going to walk right in the middle of your world and let you do anything you want to me, psychologically, anything you want. Let it happen consciously so that I'm not as mad as you are. Because I have destroyed myself long enough. You do what you want. I know what I have to do. And I'm not going to compromise with you anymore. I'm not going to please you anymore so that you'll be pleased with me. If I can't live my own life, it really isn't worth living. It really isn't. You think of, take an extreme example. You think of some friends or acquaintances or relatives of yours who are in extraordinarily bad shape. Is their life really, I'm not talking about, you understand, their life really isn't worth living to them. They don't know what to do. So they take alcohol or whatever. What you're in for, you have no idea. And that is very good news. Because having understood how difficult it is, how we can't hold back any of our energies, having understood the difficulty of the task, we won't deceive ourselves about it and go into imagination or thinking that if we come here a couple times or get acquainted with other people who are also on the same path and all that stuff, we won't deceive ourselves about the task at hand. And so we'll make up our mind to plunge right into it, to indeed find as many places as possible where I can risk something. Above all, risk the good opinion I have of myself and you have of yourself. Risk that and see how it scares the life out of you if you do it rightly. There's no shock, there's no self-facing. You might want to write this first sentence down because it's the key thought to what we're going to go into this morning. I'll give you time. Shut it off for a second, Rudy, while they search. Information plus action equals transformation. Make that self-transformation. Information plus action equals self-transformation. All right, let's start very logically and talk a little about each one of those words as we come to them. Information. This is what we're collecting here, what we're discussing. Information about my own mind, how my emotions work, how up until now I respond in confusion. I respond in confusion to practically everything without even knowing that I do respond that way. The simplest of things, and this is why I try to bring out to you, to watch yourselves right in this group, to see how you can't even make up your mind about the smallest thing. Well, that cookie has 100 calories. Should I or shouldn't I? Why don't you do it or don't without asking the question? Such little things as that. So the information we're seeking is to see how I can't make up my mind, as an example, about anything. Say nothing of big things. Should I move or not? Should I do this or that in some human relation? The information we're acquiring is to see that we have no intelligence at all, but that we react to all of life according to accidental influences. And if that accidental influence doesn't come from out there in the form of another person or a circumstance or a television news broadcast, if it doesn't come from out there, it comes from an accidental factor in me, because this is all I am inside, is a volcano of accidental shootings up. And I'd go along with it sleepily because it's the easy way. And this is all I want, the easy way. I don't want to think. Don't ask me to think. That'd be too much for me. So the first information we have to gather, as if I have to tell you, but maybe you can become far more conscious of it than you are now, and you're very little conscious of it, which is a different thing than feeling it. The information, the first important information, is to see the chaos of my life. Oh, how easily you can hurt my feelings. Anybody can hurt my feelings. How even when talking with you during the break, and I have my coffee in my hand and you have your coffee, there's a certain tension between us. I don't know quite how to behave to talk to you. Right? Following that information that I don't know how to behave at all, I can begin to understand why I don't know how to behave. Which is a lot of hard work, by the way. I don't know how to behave because I'm not at all conscious of my wrong behavior, my wrong speech, my wrong thoughts, my wrong ideas, my wrong reactions. I have taken them as the best I can do in a confused world. And I'm in this confused world, therefore I guess I just have to go along with it. So I never challenge a thing. I never ever question my way of life, even in the smallest way. I just take it for granted that I have to be nervous when I go into a strange situation. When I walk into the doctor's office, I have to be a little bit nervous because I haven't been there for a long time and I don't know how to behave. Or the dentist's office, or the lawyer's office, or meeting a stranger somewhere and he starts talking to me. I take it for granted that the only way for me to respond is to be nervous, defensive, wondering what is going on, and you are a slave. and you don't even know it. So the information I must acquire is to see the state that I'm in at all times, which is not a very pleasant one, and then see, if you were here last night, you will understand this a little better, to see that I've taken all these wrong reactions, all these nervous responses, as being what I call me. I'm 30 years old, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, and all my life I have taken the negative mess inside as being me, which in one sense it is, because that is all there is there, but in another sense, in the higher sense, which we're getting at this morning, it is not me at all. When you see that it is you and is not you at the same time, you found the secret of breaking identification with jealousy, with loneliness, and you'll see what it means to put an end to it completely. So information can be many things. Information about myself, how I respond, about my mind, about my feelings, about my confusions. It can be information about you. At the same time, I'm trying to understand, not to change anything. Don't try to change anything. I'm trying to understand it. And when you reach understanding, that understanding will change it. Because you never in your life have changed a thing. Because you don't know what it means to change. To change is to die. Right? No? Yes? No? To change is to die while I'm alive, to all my attachments, my identifications, to me as being either a nervous person or a phony, confident person. Either one. They're both the same. Aren't they? Well, we won't go into. Also, to understand, to get information about principles, cosmic laws, which is why we do read the books and we do have these meetings. So I can acquire higher ideas about the whole business. I can go home from here and read a good book, a truthful book, and an idea can come into my mind about, for example, I'll give you something. You hang on now. And I begin to see a false idea that I've been living in all my life. Ooh, that's astonishing. All my life I've never understood a false move I've been making, but now I'm acquiring the information, the idea about it. I about fainted when I read that, because I read it emotionally, and by reading it emotionally, I saw it. Here's what I saw. I saw that I've been trying to build up credits for myself in order to save myself. Here's how my reasoning goes. 1, God is up there looking down and watching me. And I've been pretty evil and pretty bad. But God has 2 ledgers, right? You get a big page, and right down is that black line. On the left is good things that Al has done. On the other side, bad things that Al has done. Well, there's plenty over on the bad side. Now I can begin to... Wife is agreeing. On the other side is all the good things I can build up, and maybe if there are 20... No. Maybe there are 5,000 bad things, but 5,001 good things. When I die, St. Peter will let me in, because it balanced, not bad. Not a saint, but we'll let him in. You don't even know that your mind is working this way. and this is what you're getting information on, to see the falsity of building up self-credit. You should all come up after this meeting and shake my hand for telling you this, because this is 10 bricks off your back. Thank heaven I don't have to be good anymore. Right? What has it got me anyway? I've been good all my life. See the big lie you're telling? Oh, no. No. Excuse me. It is better to say, I've been trying to be good all my life. Good to my children, to my husband. I go to church, and I read the Bible on Easter. If you could see through information about yourself, putting the whole thing together, that it does you no good to build up credit, that you're simply trying to put something onto an invisible person. If nobody is standing here, I dare you to put a coat on him or a hat on him. I dare you to put shoes on someone who isn't standing there. So the additional information that helps us to see that there's no separate individual, no ego, no self standing there, which merit, credit can be put onto. I said how many bricks? 10 bricks. I will say that's 50 bricks off your back when you see this. Because false effort, which ceases to drain energy, false effort, which used to drain energy, is now gone. And now that energy can be put into something else. I've told you many times that good people, in quote marks, good people resent being good. I just wonder how many of you, and those of you listening to this tape, are in a human situation where you feel it's your duty to behave in a certain, quote, good way toward another person, but you feel tied down by them, and you feel resentful toward them. You could destroy this whole business of trying to build up merit and avoiding punishment from God as a little side issue by putting an end to the whole idea that there's anyone there who has to do anything, who has to add anything to yourself, because there's no self there. See that, and the whole thing ends. And then what ends is false goodness and false morality, and contradiction and frustration comes to an end. Then you are good. Without doing a thing. Because your essence, your being is good. After information, you understand that information not acted upon is useless. I can acquire all the information possible to obtain and become a self-righteous preacher or live in dreamland of being spiritual, because indeed I can quote that book from beginning to end. I can talk on any spiritual, psychological subject you can bring up. And matter of fact, I can give a rousing speech on it. And I can hold your attention to it. Because the neurotic part in you is attracted by the neurotic part in me giving a neurotic speech. And with all this information about the Bible and the Buddhist scriptures and all the philosophers put together, all this information I can have and be a dead human being. Not wanting to live this way anymore, I can go into action on it. Now listen quite carefully. In fact, please write this down. It's just 4 words. Just 4 words. All action is now. All action is now. Information, let's go back to information a bit, then we'll work back up to action. Information belongs in memory. Does it not? We acquire facts, information, knowledge. That's stored in the part of the mind we call memory. All right? So it's in time, in past time. We acquired it in the past. It is conditioned in a sense. Right. Action is not in time. It's not in the past. How could you do something yesterday, and how can you do something tomorrow? You can't. But you can do something by that clock right now. You can be taking your attention off of me for a second if you want, right now, and putting it back to see how you're taking some of these things that we're talking about. Just watching your own response to it. That is now. Is it now? So having all this information, acquired a whole lot of it, which is good, which is necessary. We need the signpost. But you don't get on the signpost and ride it to your destination. It can't take you there. So something beyond knowledge and information has to take me there, which is very simple. Self-action in the now. And at this point we can go in about 50 different directions, and maybe we will in future talks. But I will stick to the one that we brought up a short time ago. Self-action in the now means first, because I have acquired the information that I must watch my responses, action on that would be to drop the response and not identify with it. As you heard last night, those of you who were here, I will act by risking not being a wonderful human being. I will act by not being a horrible human being, which is self-condemnation, which is self-centeredness, which is vanity, which is illusion. I will do something for myself by no longer being myself. That's action. When, through this action in the now, I have removed myself, that is my conditioning, my sorrow, my jealousy, my loneliness, when I've removed all these false identities out of the way, when I say I'm lonely, I'm lying. There is a feeling of loneliness going through you, yes. But that is not you at all. It is the pseudo-you, which loves to suffer. When through knowledge and action I have removed myself, my false self, out of the way, you stop with me. I'm stopping. You stop with me. When I have removed myself, my labeled self, out of the way, where's the problem? Stop. But I can't do it yet. Because the freight train that's been hurtling down those tracks 70 miles an hour, a runaway freight train, is still running away. And I have to make that nervous response when you threaten me. Because I'm afraid. I'm afraid. Or economic conditions threaten my employment. I have to worry about how am I going to pay the rent. Because this is the way I've always done things. You're not going to do it anymore. Because you are not the freight train. The freight train, our false personality, which is our false personality, is mechanical, it is unconscious, it is dangerous, it is self-harming. It can't do anything. Listen to this. The freight train hurtling down that track, always blabbing about something. It can't stop blabbing for 2 seconds, either mentally or out there. The freight train can't stop itself. The freight train has 20 cars on it. One of the hurtling cars can't say to another car, stop, because it's hurtling itself, right? Connect this, by the way, as a quick thought, an interesting thought. Connect what I just said with this quotation, the blind lead the blind and both fall into the ditch. See the connection? Huh? So who are you going to ask to save you? He can't even save himself. Furthermore, what part of your brilliant mind are you going to consult and say, save me? Listen, now I think we better stop. If you stopped saying, save me, you'd be saved. Because when one car of the hurtling freight train asks another, that asking car is saying, in the very asking, there is someone to be saved. Please, green car, save the red car. I'm a red car. Green car, save me. If you cease to ask to be saved, do you need to be saved? It is the asking to be saved, God help me, that creates the false need to be saved. If there is no one there to pray, what's the need to pray? There's no one there to be saved. I cease to ask for so-called salvation by acquiring certain information and acting on it. Which is this, finally. To see that I must rise above the level of ordinary thought. To put it differently, I must put an end to thought as a savior. By rising above thought, I put an end to the question. I put an end to the person asking the question. Then who is there to be saved? And saved from what? If a man's standing there, if no one is standing there, does he need to be saved from loneliness? If no one is standing there, does he need to be saved from guilt? From indecision? What am I going to do tomorrow? That's thought in time. Action now. Action now, as best you can, will free you of you, and therefore free you of all questions and of all problems. Now act on that. If I can see stupidity in myself without labeling it, without giving it a name, without calling myself stupid, I would put an end to the label, and of the great miracle of the ages, I will put an end to stupidity itself. Because I'll no longer be on the level of ordinary thought about myself. Now I'll have a clear, intelligent mind without vanity over it. Because vanity itself is on the level of opposites of thought. I am smarter than you are. How many of you are vain? Have vanity? How many of you have vanity? Do you see how you're punished by it? Do you see how you're always wanting someone to build it up? Tell me how nice I am. Comfort me. This is what we're saying. Please, dear sir or madam, tell me that my illusions about myself are realities. It can't succeed, can it? All right, what would you like to talk about? Connected with either last night or today. And then tomorrow we'll do the same. Yes?
I remember when I read, "You are not your brother's keeper." It's just as you said, there was a feeling of, this is right. And I had always thought that I was my brother's keeper.
Yes. Sally was a good little religious girl, and she resented it. We say, I'll feel insecure if I cease to behave outwardly good. I'll feel insecure if I cease to behave outwardly good. Because when I behave outwardly good, like giving presents and patting little children on the head when I want them to vote for me, if I stop doing that, then the idea of being good will vanish, and then I won't know who I am. Run the risk. Run the risk of not having the label that I am a good person who can help others. How many times have we said, well, I'll put in that form of a question. What do you have to give to another human being?
Sickness.
Larry said sickness. Quite correct. Do you have anything else but sickness to give to any other human being? Do you have anything else? So see the horrible lie that we're living in this mad world? That we can do anything by passing laws, by giving speeches, by setting up moral codes. All we have to give is our own sickness. And now you see why we have only a relatively medium-sized room full of people here instead of 1,000 people, because they don't want to hear this. We want to hear it, and hear it with increasing shock, shock every meeting. I only grow through shock. If I'm at ease, I'm not growing. I want to keep myself in bewilderment. Not to settle for an answer. Not to grab this viewpoint that we talked about. Not this viewpoint and say, this is my viewpoint. Because that forms an I. That forms a me. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing in life. I heard a classic remark one time many years ago. I happened to be in a theater, live movie, a stage act, not a movie theater, a stage play. And I was walking by a room where the door was open, and I knew that was the room of the producer of the show. It was a woman. And just casually walking by, she happened to make a certain statement, which stuck in my mind up until this time. She said, I know what I'm doing every minute. Maybe she did on the level of producing that stage play. Maybe she was an expert in that. But I connected it with our own vanity, our own psychological situation, where we insist that we know what we're doing every minute, and what is your life like every minute. So if I can stay, listen to this, if I can stay in the wilderness of bewilderment and not scream out for help, not cry out for help, stay right with it, what will happen? I discussed it 10 minutes ago. If I cease to scream for help, I put an end to the individual who needs help, and I'm out of it. But I'm wandering in the wilderness, and there's this charming charlatan offering me the cure, this woman offering me a cure, this man offering me the cure, society offering me 10,000 cures, position, fame, whatever. If I cease to accept the answers, I would eventually see there's no one there needing an answer. And right in the center of that wilderness, it would vanish. This is a real miracle. I'm surrounded by ghostly trees and dragons and ghosts right in the middle of it, not running away, trembling, scared. Lord, what's going to happen to me? I am not going to run away this time. God help me. God help me. That dragon can breathe fire on me. That shadow can turn into a ghost that'll carry me off to hell. Heaven help me. I'm staying here. I am not going to run away anymore. If it kills me, I'm going to stay. You stay, and the dragons will vanish. The ghosts will scream and run away from you. I'm not being dramatic. I'm very serious, and you had better be. The destruction of the ghosts and the goblins and the wilderness is the same as the destruction of my illusions, which is the same as the destruction of what I've called me. Isn't this perfectly clear? Isn't it clear? So I'm going to stay right there. And I'm not even going to look there because I'm too scared, but I'm not going to run. I'm going to suffer the humiliation of seeing what a liar I've been all my life. Good God, what a liar I've been. What a phony. I'm not going to say I know the answers anymore, because I don't. And I know I don't, and never did. What a bluffer I was. Remember the times you lied to people about knowing the answers? And if you could have seen how you do the very same thing you are warning someone else against, you could have shocked yourself by seeing that you're a hypocrite. Wouldn't that have been a wonderful experience? Well, we've wasted all these years, but we're here now. Boy, isn't that great? We're here now. Now we can do it. At last, at least, we're here now. It's too bad we wasted all that time in lies, but it's okay. We're here. Okay. We don't have to pay anymore. We're here. I don't have to pay anymore. Oh, I'm so tired of paying. It wore me out. It took all my resources. As a matter of fact, I refuse to pay anymore. You go ahead, life, the world, you threaten me all you want. You're going to take something away from me. For heaven's sake, take it. For heaven's sake, blow up and flare up at me if you want. I'm not going to pay you anymore. I'm going to stand right there and look at you flare up and get angry. I'm going to stand right there until you, because you can't use me anymore, will scream and run away. Because when I run away, you sense that I'm scared, and that gives you neurotic pleasure, and so you torment me all the more. It's all over, kid. Sorry. I'm all through. And my coffee is getting real cold. I'm conscious of it. So will somebody say something?
You want some warm coffee?
No, it's fine. Thank you.
Shall we go into laziness a little bit? Physical and mental laziness?
Yeah. All right. Point one. 1.1. Laziness, to one degree or another, has every one of us, right? No disagreement on that. No. Break it down a little bit into various forms of laziness. Physical laziness, which I will now jolt you out of. Everyone in this room will now get up and move to another chair where you feel uncomfortable.
I'm going to feel very uncomfortable. I'm going to sit on the lap. Were you sitting? All right.
Now you see, those of you who like to get in the little corner chair, now you feel exposed. Isn't that great? Oh, I see some new faces, new people here. Welcome to the group. So there's physical laziness, mental, emotional, general psychic laziness. We become more energetic and less lazy by doing the one thing I mentioned earlier, which is willingly going through a shock. Now, you're in this group only a very short time, 3 times a week, relatively short time. And I can give you certain little things that shock you out of laziness, such as now, which is a very little thing. That was easy, wasn't it? Because the physical change, that's simple. But you have to find your own examples, your own instances where you can jolt yourself out of, listen, listen, of the present state you're in. Jolt yourself out of the present state, because this jolt does create energy. It makes you see something, because you can stand outside at the moment of this shock and see that you were lazy. And that is what puts an end to laziness after a long and hard work. Where can you find, this is up to you, this is your life, your work. I have mine. And I'm doing it right now while I'm talking to you, by the way. I'm trying to jolt myself as much as I can. I'm doing all kinds of things, by the way, while I'm talking to you. You find instances where you can break a routine. What's the routine? Remember we said the simple thing of walking across the room slowly? If you happen to walk fast, walk slow. If you walk slow, walk fast. To put yourself out of your habitual way of walking or thinking or responding. All right, how do you respond when someone is depressed in front of you? How do you respond? You catch yourself at that moment and say, I'm not going along with my habitual response. The fact that you've said it is already a beginning of waking. And where's Connie? I can't even see her anymore. The beginning of jolting yourself out of laziness. Yeah. And one little success will build another one. Because now, to put it as simply as possible, you have the idea that by self-work, by interrupting your state, saying, I am sitting here on the couch watching television. I'm watching an interesting show. What can I do to break it? Maybe I want to continue to watch the show, whatever it is. But I have learned that I must interrupt it in order to create more energy, to be able to shift from one state to another when it is necessary, instead of driving my car mechanically. All right. So I say, I'm watching this show, and I put a piece of paper on the desk in front of me, the couch in front of me, and I put one word, or 2 or 3 words. I put, turn attention backward. My attention is on the TV set, watching that fascinating show. However, I want to wake up in this life. I no longer want to be a dead human being thinking I'm alive. So I'm going to make a small effort to arouse more energy, to cease being so lazy. So I'm watching the show, and the cowboy is chasing the Indians, the stagecoach. And right at the middle of it, I casually glance down and I say, reverse attention. That's good, reverse attention. So I give myself a jolt by suddenly taking my attention away from the cowboy chasing the stagecoach back to my attention of myself watching the show. I put myself briefly, 1 split second, into another state, so that I'm beginning to be aware of not only watching the show, but aware of myself watching it. This is a tiny shock. I want to watch the Cowboys, but I want to wake up more. So I do something I don't want to do. We follow the path of least resistance in everything we do, don't we? You don't even know that. You don't know it. You think you're acting from will, from consciousness, from your own decision? You're not at all. You're the freight train. And that freight train has no intelligence at all.